Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where each and every week I show people how to make things on the wood lathe. This week we're going to be working with something that I personally have never worked with before, and that is Cholla Cactus. Hopefully I'm saying that right. I've got a couple different styles here, and anyway, we'll talk more about this over on the bench, but I'm hoping that this is going to be maybe a hollow form. At this point I don't really know, but I'm thinking this would look really cool with a hollow form. I've been putting this off for a while because I just kind of trying to come up with a creative way to use this. So anyway, let's get over to the bench and we'll figure out exactly what we're going to do with these pieces. So like I said, I've never used this stuff before, and I've had it for quite some time now, just trying to figure out exactly what I want to do with it. These three, I got these from Jim D, and the rest of these come from Cliff Powell. I think he's down in New Mexico and he sent me all these. So thanks Jim, and thanks Cliff. I do appreciate it. I know that you've probably been wondering how long it's going to be before I end up using this stuff, but you know, just kind of waiting for inspiration to come along. So this is the bucket that we're going to use, that I like to use, and I'm actually going to use a spacer. This is a piece of willow, if you're weeping willow, if you're curious what that looks like. I've been carting this around since 2009. That's when this tree was cut. I just rounded this on the lathe, and I've sprayed the ends with lacquer, so hopefully that will prevent any resin or limit how much epoxy is going to be sucked up by this, because you know, your spacer, you really don't want that. So right now I want 10 inches in diameter, or 10 inches tall, and that's going to be a lot of epoxy. So that's the main reason for using the spacer, which I'm, you know how I am with spacers if you've been around for a while, but in this case I think it's going to work. So what I want to do is we're going to use the longer pieces are going to be around the outside of the casting, and then I'm going to cut up some smaller ones to put in the base, and hopefully I've got enough for the top as well, and hopefully it gives us a really cool look. So let's get over and cut these on the bandsaw and we'll go from there. There is some shorter ones that I'm not going to be able to use though. I'd like to personally thank you all for stopping in to watch this week's video. It's always cool to work with things that you've never worked with before. And you're going to see in this video that it's a struggle. This thing kind of fought me in the casting stages. I'm not going to ruin it for you, but it was a challenge to cast and presented some issues that I had to deal with throughout the turning of it too. All right, so these are well, they look like a pain to clean. So I've got these brushes. I think we got these off of Amazon, so different sizes. So hopefully I'll be able to get inside and clean these all out. I'm going to get my respirator on. I could see down inside of these, and I knew that there was some leaves in there and other debris. So, you know, I know that it's very important to get that out of there. And at the end of the table, you'll start to see a pile of sand that starts to accumulate. So, you know, if you don't get rid of that, then it's a tool killer. It'll absolutely destroy your tools. So it's very important to get rid of that. And yeah, there's quite a little stack of foreign material that you definitely don't want to deal with when it's on the lathe, because you probably won't have enough cutters in your inventory to deal with it. So I started off with this bucket. Well, actually, this is the second bucket because I just didn't have enough of these to go with my original bucket that I wanted to use. And, well, you'll see me switch out to another one because this one was also too large as well. Okay, let's try this again. I don't know if you remember me talking about how much time you lose trying to figure out how to do this stuff. Well, there you go. I mean, I've been at this now for, the better part of 2 hours trying to figure out what to do here, what's going to look best, what's going to work, which is always a time killer. So I definitely want to use this cactus to its full potential here. I don't want to waste it. So, this is one of the things that I struggle with when, especially when people send me stuff. I don't want to waste it, and trying to figure out a creative way to use it sometimes can be quite a struggle. I know that a lot of artisans deal with this, and I'm no different than them. But it's in the end, I really like the look of this. I find it's very cool. All right, so now I've got to turn this down a little smaller in order to fit it in there, because it ain't going now. Be right back. There. If I got enough room for 3 of these? Just barely. All right. Cut this down a little further, lengthwise. One of the more challenging things to do if you decide to work with a material like this is that it's constantly releasing foreign material. Anytime you hammer on it like that or jam these pieces down inside the bucket, they rub on each other and then they end up releasing stuff. So it's important to really clean these pieces up. Regardless, I definitely want to work with this stuff more in the future. Oh, wow, I'm telling you, this has been a struggle. Really don't like the fact that there's a big gap there, but there's not really a whole lot I can do about it, really. All right, I'm going to use some CA glue to hold these 3 down, and then I'm going to hot melt glue these all kind of around the outside of this. I really didn't want to put any hardboard or anything like that on top of these to hold them in place, because it would have made things a lot more difficult to pour. I mean, I've certainly done that in the past, but I think the CA glue was a better option. Found another one that would fit into that little hole, so happy days. All right, while that is curing up, smoke coming off it, let's finally mix up some resin. It has been a chore getting here, let me tell you. This week we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. This is quite a deep pour, so really got to stick with a deep casting epoxy. And some pistachio green is going to be one of the colors. Enchanted green is going to be another one. Not as much as this pistachio. And we're going to throw some ghost green in here as well. So it's definitely a green themed project. One of the reasons why these colors were selected is because we thought it was important to make it look like a cactus. Okay, I think that we're good. I don't think anything's going to move, hopefully. All right, this is probably not even going to be close to doing it. There's a lot of space and voids here to fill up. It's not even halfway. Mind you, that spacer is not really coming into play yet. Anyway, I'll mix some more up and I'll be right back. All right, here's another 1.5 liters. Use the mechanical mixer on this. I noticed that there was some pigment didn't get mixed in last time. Oh, come on. I don't want to use a... oh, man. It's going to be a small miracle if this doesn't thermal crack. All right, this is 3/4 liter. Lots of air in this from the mechanical mixer, but oh well. Well, I know that that's going to drop off substantially. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this in the pressure pot as it is right now, and tomorrow morning I'm going to open it up when the resin's still pliable, like it's probably still going to be quite liquidy, hopefully, if this doesn't thermal crack. And I'll add more then. Probably what I'll do, I'll bring it back tomorrow morning and we'll top this up and I'll show you that it's probably still quite liquidy at that stage, and we'll be able to add more. See you then. Okay, so here's my plan to save this piece. What you're looking at is 700 milliliters of the same mix that we put into the piece already. And, you know, there's probably going to be a witness line. I don't think that we're going to get away with that. Now, this is our cast, so we'll be able to move on with the project tomorrow. And I've mixed up some magenta, about 100 milliliters of magenta. And the reason why I've done that is I just kind of researched this cactus, and most of the flowers are magenta looking. So that's where this comes in. And if you're wondering what's going on here, that's an electric heater, of course. And this little rack, I like to put the cups by there to get some heat in them. They'll actually mix up a lot easier if the resin is cold. That's another reason for this. But you know, once this hits 45 to 50 degrees, we'll do the pour, and hopefully we'll be able to get some color separation with this magenta, and that will be our flower on the top. All right, we're at 50.7 Celsius, and that is 123.8 Fahrenheit. Now I realize that the vast majority of this is probably just going to get turned away, but if I don't do this, keep in mind that spacer is just below the surface here. So, you know, I need this height so that I can push on this, and because right now I really can't. Almost the perfect amount. And I'm just going to try and blob this and fill in these little areas here along the top. Anyway, we'll see how it is in the morning. Well, all right, it's the next day, and have you ever had those pieces that just don't want to cooperate and fight you every step of the way? Well, that's this one. Look at all that thermal cracking. I know that this was a little bit of an overpour, but man, I'm surprised to see that. Anyway, it's going to be delayed yet another day. All right, well, all I'm going to do is mix up some more art cast, and I will fill it. I'll put some magenta in it again and do the pour on top. And then hopefully we'll be able to work on this tomorrow. I'm just a little leery about trying to push on this with the live center or the drive center. Too many cracks for my liking and too unsafe to turn when it's like that. Anyway, hopefully everything will be all right and we'll be able to do this tomorrow. I do like the look of this though. Well, good morning. Finally, everything is filled in. Our cracks are anyway. Problem is this is right to the top, and I'm not going to get this out. So we're going to have to cut this bucket pretty much at the end of its lifespan anyway. So anyway, let's get this out and see what we're looking at. Now, before we get this out, I'm thinking there's probably thermal cracks down the side of this, but I guess we'll find out here in a sec. It definitely don't want to give up. Well, you can see where the other pour was. And again, I don't know, I'm hoping that really isn't going to be a factor. I don't see any other thermal cracking. It definitely got warm though, that's for sure. Down here doesn't matter, that's going to be all turned away. There may be more inside, but as it is right now, she's good. That's not too bad. As you watch me clean this piece off with the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems, why did this crack? First of all, this was an over pour on the initial pour. Deep cast is only meant to be poured 4 inches, and this thing is a good solid 8 inches. So it's surprising that we didn't get a lot more cracking. Of course, I've shown on the channel here that this can be controlled mostly by temperature. I think that the fact that it was an overpour, and if I had to turn the temperature down inside of my casting room or even put this in the fridge overnight, then I think that it would have been fine and we wouldn't have had any issues. I was hoping to get away with it, and I rolled the dice on it, and it just didn't happen. Now with Art Cast, I think the main reason why the Art Cast we had issues with it again was it was an overpour. Art Cast is only meant to be 1 inch max, and I think that was about 1.5 inches, maybe even 1 3/4 inches. And so the 2 epoxies were warm when they were mixed together, and the casting itself was also warm. So it probably never had a chance, to be perfectly honest with you. If the epoxy that I was pouring it onto had been a little cooler, it would have certainly cooled it down, and I don't think that it would have thermal cracked. But it's 100% on me and not designer epoxy. Well, all right, we still got to go down a little further to reveal these cactus pieces. I'm thinking that there's 2 different types though, because this, has oblong and this has like really linear holes. I guess they're both oblong, but one's certainly looks a lot different than the other. Mind you, this one looks a little the same too. Maybe it's just an older cactus. Okay, so I don't think we're going to overcomplicate this. This is going to be pretty busy as it is. So, just going to come in, make a smaller foot on this end, bring this in, and hopefully we'll leave a little collar at the top with, we can get some magenta in it. Simple, easy design, and it should work well with our cactus, hopefully. So yeah, not ever working with cactus. In the back of my mind, I thought maybe that was just a more mature cactus, that's why it looked differently. And that's quite common in trees. Yellow birch is a prime example of that. If you see like a really old yellow birch tree that say 2, 3, 4 feet in diameter, then the bark that's on the bottom of that tree does not look anything like yellow birch. You have to look up into the canopy and look at the leaves to figure out exactly what it is. But you'll see that yellow birch look up in the canopy, but on these mature trees, that's not the case, usually at the base. And for some reason in the back of my head, I was thinking just automatically that this was an older cactus, and that's why it looked that way. So regardless, the 2 of them together look fantastic. I really do like the look of this, and like I said earlier, I definitely want to get more of this and see what else we can make with this. So here's our first real look, and yep, there's a big thermal crack there that's going to have to be fixed. There may be one more on the other side, but there was just a bunch of small, tiny thermal cracks throughout the top part of this you'll see coming up. But the Hercules is working great here. I don't know how great it would have worked if we had left all that sand and foreign material behind. Probably not all that great. At the end of this, I did have to rotate the cutter because it was pretty much done. But I know that a lot of people ask me that question, like how long do I get out of the cutters, because these cutters are replaceable on the tip of this this Hercules. And you know, that's a tough question to answer, because all woods cut differently and all woods are harder than each other. And certainly this stuff here is stuff, never working with it before, I had no idea how hard it was going to be on tools. That is harder than normal, I would say. I can usually get, say, 2 projects out of a cutter before I have to rotate it. But like I said, at the end of this one, the cutter was pretty much done on the one side. So here's your weekly house update, and there's nothing to report. No showings, still very slow. I don't know if you guys want to keep hearing about this, but anyway, I'll keep updating you on what's going on here with the sale of the house. And if you're new to the channel, we're selling the house that we're currently in and moving to the east coast of Canada and New Brunswick. And we plan on building a new house in a much larger workshop than what I have currently. But we really can't do that until the house sells. Well, we could, but financially, I just don't really want to do it. And because the last thing I want to do is carry 2 mortgages until this one sells. But anyway, that's your weekly update. So I'm going to reverse this. This is why I was making the tenon, and then that way we'll be able to stick a glue block on the bottom of this. It's very hard to get a bite on this because it's pretty much all the cactus, which is really hard. It looks like a fragile thing, but trust me, it's not. It's actually pretty robust. And yeah, just more little cracks are showing up. You know, there's nothing like huge cracks, but you know, it's just up near the top was worse. And of course, that's just because that's where the art cast was sitting, and it cracked substantially. So the vast majority of that gets turned away. And anyway, I just want to hit this with a 60 grit, and then we'll be able to stick a glue block on the end of it. And again, this is an end grain glue block, so that way it won't break in half. So that's why I like to use these. You know, in the past I got caught using side grain glue blocks, and ever since switching to this method, I would do this on occasion before, but a lot of times I just wouldn't think about it, to be quite honest with you. So by using an end grain tenon, that is certainly a stronger tenon, and well, it's virtually impossible to break in half. You certainly can rip it off the bottom of whatever you're working on, but it's not easy to, well, it's pretty much impossible to break in half because it's all end grain. So I initially thought that this was the right size, and I measured the depth of it, and it's too deep. I want the top of the jaws to be resting on the bottom of the form, so I took off another probably 1/8 of an inch, and then I knew it was going to work well. One of these, yeah, I almost dropped it there, because that was the way this was going. That this was going to drop on the floor and then split in half. That's how this was going. I was just like, man, this thing is just absolutely fighting me. It is 100% fighting me. Anyway, eventually I get it locked down, and that's just the Phoenix that we're using there to. I want to kind of undercut the collar area, and just clean up the rest of the casting here. I wanted a thinner foot than what I ended up with. I still like this profile. Next time I will probably leave myself more room there to give me a smaller foot for this piece to sit on. I just wanted a more delicate looking foot. And you know, it's a cool looking thing. I can't argue that. It would be really nice to have different colors in there. I know when I was talking to Jim D, he wanted kind of like a tequila sunrise theme look with it, and that certainly is something that maybe we can try in the future here if I get my hands on more of this stuff. So my wife and I actually do plan on flying out to New Brunswick here, hopefully in the very near future, and I'll try and film some of that and basically show you the the spot that we plan on building. We keep changing what side we want to put the workshop on the house. So I think the only way we can really solve that is to go to the site and lay it out with some stakes and maybe some string, and then we'll go from there. But it's actually a flatter site to work on. It does have a little slope to it, which is good. I've never ever built a house on flat land, and I never will. And so anyway, this has got just a general, a gradual slope away from the building, so that'll be good as far as moving water away. And it's actually very gravelly ground, so there won't be probably much any standing water anyway. But anyway, that is coming up hopefully in the very near future here, and I'll try and get some of that video posted as well. So our form's starting to take shape as the shavings come into your living rooms at home. To be honest with you, I had no idea how the stuff was going to cut. I had heard from one person in particular who said that, you know, these pieces need to be stabilized before you work with them. I was thinking, well, if I work with Banksia pods and I didn't have to stabilize them, I think I'll probably be okay with this, just, you know, looking at it, because it looked a lot more woodier without fuzz. Okay, so I've taken a little bit of thin Starbond and I've mixed the enchanted green and the pistachio green in here. Hopefully this is enough. The UV resin really isn't an option here, and the reason for that is because I'll just have a very hard time curing this. So there's only one big one on the bottom here. See how deep this goes. It looks like it goes pretty deep. I'm figuring that some of these cracks are easily 2-3 inches deep, and if you had to use the UV resin in there, it would have been very hard to cure it. One small little place there. Some of these don't go in very far. For those who are curious, yes, I could have just used the clear CA glue. In this case, I just thought it would look better if it was tinted due to the size of some of these cracks. I realize that, you know, you guys might not even be able to see these. They're so small. But if I don't do this, I mean, I still plan on doing an epoxy coat on this once we get this cored out, or hollowed out, I should say. And that should take care of the rest of them. Just want to put a little bit on the very top here, just to fill in any holes if they're there. All right, well, unfortunately, that's all we're going to be able to do today. If I try to turn this now, all that CA glue that's down and deep inside of this is going to come flying out. Got to give it some cure time. So anyway, I'll put this in my clean room where the heat is. Don't even know if that matters, but anyway, we'll pick this up tomorrow. So this is in fact the next day, and that's the Phoenix I'm using here just to cut up underneath of that collar area and clean that up. You'll see me do yet another filling here quite shortly. I knew the day before that there was no way that I was going to get away with filling those cracks with one go of the CA glue. It's just it's not going to happen. A lot of times, you know, you'll whittle some material away and then you'll expose another crack, and then you'll fill that one and whittle away more material and expose another crack. It's just one of those things that comes with working with items like this. And I do find that a lot of times when I see thermal cracking, it's because if you look at a lot of the thermal cracks, the larger ones, they're in the center of those cactus pieces. And I don't know if that's because it just can't get rid of the heat, that it kind of gets trapped in there, even though there's holes through this. If you look at the majority of the fillings I do, they're in the center of the cactus. They're not on the side, every one of these. So I find that an interesting development, and I don't know if that's got anything to do with it at all. I just find it really strange that, you know, there's none really outside of the cactus themselves. By all means, please share your thoughts down below. So anyway, now we'll clean this up again, and then we'll finally be able to move on to drilling here shortly. And I'm just going around and seeing if my fingernail catches in any of the cracks, because again, sometimes it's deceiving when you're looking at it that it isn't filled when in fact it is. But anyway, you know, this is just one of the things you deal with when you're resin casting and you're doing projects that are deep like this. It's something you're going to deal with. There we go, ready for drilling. As you can see, I've got the steady rest in place now, and of course I put some of that painter's tape on the outside of this. Again, I don't really know if that is necessary or not, but hey, for what it costs to try it, I'll keep doing it. So far, I haven't had any issues, so thanks for that suggestion. Anyway, I think I started drilling this at around 1 inch and then went up to 2 inch. And then after that, we'll be able to carry on with some hollowing. All right, we are all set up and ready for hollowing. This is the retrofit tool from Hunter Tool Systems, link in the description. And of course, that is the laser. If you haven't seen this system before, essentially when the laser elongates on the side and drops off, you've achieved your wall thickness. That's probably about 5/8 of an inch or so. And of course, this is the captive system from oneway.ca. I did modify this so that it will go over top of the steady rest. I wouldn't even think about drilling this or doing anything, any sort of turning without a steady rest, because how long this piece is off of the headstock. So pretty easy to get ripped from the jaws. So that's why we're using the steady rest. All right, let's see how we make out. I should mention that that is Cindy Drozda's little light as well. My wife the other day actually mentioned to me, she goes, you should make sure you tell them that you're not sponsored by One Way, and I'm not. I have a lot of One Way accessories. I would have bought a 2436 back in the day, but the fact that it didn't have left-hand threads on the outboard end was kind of a... anyway, that's why I didn't go with them. Knowing what I know now, I wish that I had of. I would have just taken the arbor out and got it milled. That was probably the easiest solution to it. But anyway, no, I am not sponsored by One Way. I just am a big fan of One Way products. And most of the stuff that they make, I could honestly say, yes, buy it. There's some things that, you know, I can't really recommend. But for the most part, pretty much all One Way accessories, including their lathes, are fantastic products. So we're just going to open this up a little bit more, and that way you don't have to shut the lathe off as much. And I did cut a ton of footage out of here. There's not really a whole lot showing the inside of this, but it gives us a chance to briefly talk about last week's project. And before I do that, though, I should point out the laser. And the idea with that laser, if you haven't seen this before, basically when the laser elongates on the side of the form, whatever distance you have set between the cutter and the laser, when that laser just drops off the outside, you've achieved the wall thickness that you've set. Getting back to last week's project, the maple burl with pine cones that have been frosted. That was a good video. I'm actually surprised at how well it did. I thought the fact that it was so thick that it was going to be, wasn't going to work for a lot of people. But surprisingly, a lot of people really did like the look of that. And I'm happy because I like big, beefy turnings. I don't know. That's since day one. I think it may have something to do with the fact that, you know, I was doing a lot of inlays when I first started. Well, pretty much that's all I was doing. So at the top of my bowls, I always looked thick anyway. But anyway, thanks to those who watched that last week, and I'll link it at the end of this video if you missed it. Well, okay, we're going to try something new here. I have no idea if this is going to work. This is a retrofit tool again. It isn't being held by a lot, but anyway, I'm hoping that it's going to work. Of course, it works great with the straight bar, but not so much with the double bent bar, and which this is, and the bent bar. But let's give it a go and see what happens. So this works surprisingly well. I was a little worried about vibration and it basically getting ripped out of the bar and then this flying around inside and damaging the piece, but overall it held. I never really had too many issues with it. I think possibly what I'm going to do is modify where the mounting area is, where that retrofit tool was sitting, so that it can basically slide in a little deeper, and you know, we'll get some better clamping pressure down on it, so we don't have to worry about these things. But it does give you a little bit longer reach to the left too, so that's also another bonus. So before we start sanding, I just want to clean up the opening here a little bit. That is, I started with the Phoenix, and then you'll see me switch to the wide reach Baron, something that I have not used pretty much at all. Just a little bit, there it is there. And the tool rest was too close. I needed to back the tool rest up. It was, you know, kind of grabbing on me, and that's not really the way that it's meant to be held flat like that. So I thought I'd try that. And then I've also got the long reach Baron, and that's that one there. So between the three of those tools, I was able to get in there and clean up underneath of that collar and get it ready for sanding. All right, so before we move on to sanding, thought I'd give you a look inside and see what we're looking at. Reasonably happy with that. There is that big thermal crack does come all the way down. See it down there in the very bottom. And there's another one in there too. Yeah, I can see it up there. So after we get done sanding, we'll do an epoxy coat, and hopefully it'll sort all that stuff out. So as far as the sanding is concerned, I only did the outside. I didn't really see the necessity to do the inside. So started at 60, and I'm only going to go to 180 because of the epoxy coat. Probably 220 would be the max that I would sand to. I just don't see the point in going any higher than that. And of course, I reached in as far as I could with my fingers to sand the very top. Anyway, I just didn't see the need to sand the inside, so that's why I didn't do it. If the opening was larger, though, I would have. All right, what I have here is 3 ounces of the Pro Series. I like to use this because it's nice and thin, and it'll flow into any little micro cracks that are in there, and it'll also fill in the wood nicely. There, I'll leave that for about 5 minutes or so, then we'll put it back on the lathe and do the coat on the outside. And this is mostly directed at the new people. I'm using a silicone barbecue brush, and that way you don't get any hairs ripped out, and embed it in the epoxy, and then just flatten it with my glove hand afterwards. Well, there you go. It's been a minute to get here. It certainly has. I really like the look of this. Hopefully you guys do as well. It's really cool seeing the green through all these little voids and openings that are there. Just down inside. Try and point out where that big thermal crack is. This thing is so heavy. Right here is where that thermal crack is. So, you know, it's not real noticeable anymore. Matter of fact, when it's sitting on the table, I don't think you'll even see it at all, to be honest with you. Overall, I like it, and hopefully you guys do as well. Very cool. See you tomorrow for the first coat of waterlogs. Well, all right, it is the next day, and that's what we're looking at. There were some bubbles here and there, nothing overly big. I was hoping that the ends of these cactus skeletons would get filled in at the very top, but they didn't. I could see there's some dry areas. The camera's gonna pick that up or not. But overall, I think we're in good shape here. So I'm gonna start sanding this at 180 and work my way up to 800. And then we'll get our first coat of Waterlux on. So the other thing about the silicone barbecue brush, after I get done using it, I've got a container that has some acetone in it. I just stick the brush in the acetone, I leave it there overnight. The acetone doesn't eat the silicone. And then that way it's cleaned out in the morning. So it's all ready to go for the next time you need to use it. Now that we're done with sanding, we'll be able to buff with the EEE buffing compound. And then when that's done, we'll clean this up with some denatured alcohol and get ready for our first coat of Waterlux. All right, so what I have in here is some Waterlux gloss. I've got this in a container because I'm working on another project. We're gonna put this on and see how we make out here. There you go, first coat of Waterlux. Looks fantastic, I must say. But they are very, very neat. Not sure if I like the bigger ones. I think maybe the smaller ones. They're a little magenta on the top, represent the flowers. Get some better light here maybe. Here's what it looks like down inside. Epoxy is pooled a little bit on the bottom. That's okay, I'm good with that. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna do another coat. It will, yeah, definitely need another coat. And all I'm gonna do is buff it with the EEE and then put the next coat on after cleaning it with the denatured alcohol. We'll see you when we're doing the bottom. I'm going to use the vacuum chuck this time around to do the bottom on this piece. It is risky due to the fact that this is hanging off the headstock as long as it is. So, you know, this took me a long time. I'm just taking little niblets here because I can, at this stage, probably quite easily rip this off the vacuum chuck. So anyway, I cut out a ton of footage here because it just took forever to do to whittle away the bottom here. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for the video. Thanks to all that have watched the entire video all the way through. I really do appreciate it. It really does help with the analytics. So we're going to have a last little chat about this beautiful hollow form, and it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think about it. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think about this piece. I think that it's very, very cool. The openings in it really kind of make it. The resin flowing around them is just very cool. It was a chore to get here. I'm not going to lie. It was a chore to get here. There's kind of what the inside looks like. I must say it's not too bad for no sanding. I'll put some rotating footage up at the end like I usually do. The size on this is 6.5 inches wide at its widest dimension and 8 inches tall, and it's somewhere around 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch thickness, a little thinner at the top here than the rest of the piece. One thing that I was really, I wanted a smaller base and I wanted to tilt this in a little more, but due to the fact that it was in the jaws, it was just really hard to do. So I'm happy with the way it looks, but I would have liked to seen this a little bit more tapered in and a smaller foot. That's kind of the design I was going for, but this is still a beautiful form. I like this as well. Now I'm going to show you the bottom here. Now I found out after the fact, when I was talking to Jimmy D, that of course there are 2 different types of cactus in here. I'm going to attempt these. I'm not from down there. It's Saguaro and Cholla. Cactus colors. I don't know if I'm saying that's right. I'm probably going to take it in the comments large for it. But anyway, we don't have that here in Canada, so that's my excuse and I'm sticking to it. But anyway, thanks again, Cliff and Jim, for sending these along. Really fun project to do, and fun and frustrating at the same point. At the same time, I should say. Anyway, it is a beauty and it is for sale. Send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com and I will disclose the price then in case it's a gift. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the 3-gallon giveaway at 130,000 when we get there. And of course, that is only for Canada and the lower 48 US states. But by leaving a comment down below, you'll be entered into my giveaway at 130,000, whatever it's going to be when we get there. And I will ship worldwide to the winner. So it doesn't matter where you are in the world, comment down below and you'll be automatically entered into my giveaway. All right, well, that's going to do it for this one. Really cool, fun project to work with. Definitely would like to work with more of it in the future and try and come up with other ideas. But, you know, I was just really, I've had the ones from Jimmy D for quite some time, and I was struggling to find a way how to use them because there was only the 3 of them, and everybody's like, oh, it would have made fantastic pepper mills. I know, but you know my views on pepper mills. So I didn't want to go in that direction with it. This was kind of the direction I was really hoping to go with it, and the addition with the Cholla skeletons, cactus skeletons, definitely I think is a really cool look that this gives us. But anyway, let me know down below. And of course, down below is also in the description are all the links to all the sponsors of my channel. So if you need some stuff, head on down there, check them out, and put some money back in your pocket. Next week, I'm gonna demonstrate to you why you should own a corn rig, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. Well, that's it. Take care, stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. That is the largest way for me to grow my presence here on YouTube. I would really appreciate it. Special thanks to the members and the people that gave me super chats and super thanks. I really do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.